What's going on, guys? My name is John, and welcome to my Nostalgiaholic show. This episode, I'm going to put together my top 10 80s cartoon shows, and this took me a while to put together because there's so many good ones out there, to be honest with you. So, had to narrow it down to 10. I wish it could be longer. I could do top 50, but I didn't want to make the video too long. I'd really encourage you guys, if you guys haven't heard these shows before, Google search them. You can find the intros, you can find a little bit more information about these shows. Unfortunately, due to the copyrights, I can't really show the intros in this video or any of the images or anything like that, but certainly research them. I really encourage you guys to check them out. Number 10 is a show that some of you guys may have heard of. It came out, it was only available for several seasons, 82 through 84, and that is called Shirt Tales. The premise of the show were there were kind of a whole bunch of zoo animals with shirts, and they had special abilities. They had a keeper as well, and their shirts would have like magical powers, so to speak. Kind of sounds really cheesy looking back on it, but I remember there was like a panda, there was like a gorilla, if I remember correctly. It's been forever since I've seen this show, to be honest, but I have a lot of fond memories watching Shirt Tales. That's number 10 on my list. Number 9 on my list was a show that came out between 1984 and 1990. There was 107 episodes of this show, and it's called Muppet Babies. I remember the theme song was still stuck in my head, and it's based on the Muppets characters, but they're babies. They're kind of in a daycare center. But it was a really funny show. I really enjoyed it. You got Kermit, you got Miss Piggy, Fozzie, all the really popular Muppet characters in baby form. But a great show. I really encourage you guys to check it out, Muppet Babies. Number 8 on my list was a short-lived show, unfortunately, but a really great show. And if you're a big video gamer like I am, you guys would really enjoy the show. It's called Captain N and the Game Master. It came out between 1989 and 1991. Only 34 episodes were produced. The whole premise was your Captain N, he gets sucked through a TV playing the Nintendo. He's in I think Nintendo Land or some weird other world. And there's other characters like you've got Mother Brain, you've got Simon from Castlevania in it. There's a whole bunch of different characters from various Nintendo games back in the 80s. And they kind of work together. There's the good and the bad, of course. Really fun show. I remember Captain N had like the Nintendo gun zapper as a weapon, which I thought was pretty cool. His belt had like the Nintendo controller as well. So number 8 on my list is Captain N, the Game Master. Number 7 on my list is it's, of course, Inspector Gadget. It was out from 1983 to 1986. Only 86 episodes were produced of the show, but it was syndicated a lot. It came out, they did reruns, etc. And they produced a live-action movie in the 90s, I think, sometime in the 90s, Inspector Gadget. And the idea was he was a detective. He had all these cool gadgets. His arm he'd go gadget arms, and his arm would expand out, and he'd have like these springs on his shoes and stuff like that. He had, I think, Penny or something like that was his daughter, and or Gadget or something like that, if I remember correctly. And there was a dog in there as well. He had a pet dog, and he was pretty smart as well. Really fun show. I really recommend Inspector Gadget if you haven't seen it. Number 6 on my list. Let's see. La 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 la. Again, you guys probably recognize this tune. Very, very famous 80s TV cartoon show. And of course, it's the Smurfs. Smurfs actually is a Belgium it actually started in Belgium back in the 50s of all things. And there was books. It was for kids. And it's in French. I'm gonna butcher the name in French. I'm not even gonna attempt to say it. I'll put it here so you can kind of read it. But obviously in the 80s, it came out from 1982 through 1984. So, but there's a ton of episodes that came out for it. Again, it was in syndication. You had the Smurfs, of course, which were small little blue guys that lived in a village. And you have Gargamel, and his cat, who lived in like a castle, and he was always trying to catch these Smurfs. And I always thought something kind of funny I always felt was about Smurfs was you had, Papa Smurf, you had all these other male Smurfs, and then you had Smurfette, and you had this other younger Smurf female character. And that was those were the only 2 female Smurfs in the whole village of all these Smurfs. So I don't know how they reproduce or anything like that, but man, Smurfette must get around or something because there's only Smurfette and this other chick. But it was a really great show. There's a lot of humor in it. Great, one of my favorite games for the ColecoVision is called The Smurfs. I have a lot of fond memories playing that game. Really recommend The Smurfs as well. Number 5, we're really narrowing it down here to my top 5 80s cartoon shows. And I know a lot of people may give me slack for this show being kind of further down my list because I know a lot of you guys probably have this as number one on your list because it's a really popular show based on a really popular toy line by Hasbro, which started in the 1960s, and it's called G.I. Joe, a real American hero. The show was only around for several seasons as well, produced for 95 episodes, 1983 to 1986. Really great action-packed show. I love the toy line by Hasbro as well, that they coincide. Initially, G.I. Joes were like 12-inch figures, and then they made these 3 3/4-inch figures for the show, and a really popular toy line. I think that toy line alone went from till about 94. They still make G.I. Joe figures today. Awesome vehicles. You can get a DVD collector set, which has got all the episodes in one. You have Cobra, who's like the bad guys, and then you have the G.I. Joe, who are the good guys. Super show, and I think they just made a recent movie, a second movie, G.I. Joe movie, live action movie with The Rock and stuff like that. Wayne Johnson just came out recently and is doing pretty well in theaters. So G.I. Joe definitely still popular today, but started definitely in the 80s as far as the TV show goes. Number 4 is also a Hasbro produced series and very popular toy line, and that is Transformers. There was 98 episodes between 1984 and 1987. They still have Transformer series today, which is a spin-off, and they did some other spin-off series as well. But this is the original Transformer series I'm referring to. They're characters that were vehicles that could transform into like more like human-like characters, right? And they'd be cars or planes or what have you. Obviously, many of us know there's been some popular movies based on Transformers. It's been done very well in the box office. But for me, the cartoon is this classic. You got Optimus Prime. The voice of Optimus Prime was awesome, and just simple, like just a great action-packed cartoon series for sure. Number 3, I'm starting to see a pattern here. This is another show that was a very popular toy line in the 80s, and it came out from 1983 to 1985, 130 episodes in like 2 seasons, and that's He-Man, Masters of the Universe. There's been several other series of He-Man, very similar to Transformers and G.I. Joe's. There's been several other series. The first one is classic to me, and it takes place in a kind of a fantasy world where you have Prince Adam as kind of the alter ego, and then you have He-Man, very similar to like Clark Kent and Superman. And the whole idea was he would have to save Eternia, which is the planet he lived on. But the action figures along with it that Mattel produced were awesome. It's very almost like Conan the Barbarian kind of type figures. Legend has it, and the story goes that Mattel initially declined George Lucas when A New Hope, Star Wars Episode 4 came out in 1977. He had approached Mattel to create a line of action figures to go along with Star Wars. Mattel declined. Kenner took that and did incredibly well with the Star Wars line. And since that, Mattel was very upset that they just didn't take with it. So they wanted to come up with a really popular boys line of action figures. They had Barbie, which was very successful for the girls, obviously, and they wanted to come up with a toy line for guys. So they came up with He-Man. Every episode had like a moral, kind of a message at the end of it, as far as like a moral thing that they would talk about, kind of a life lesson, so to speak. But He-Man is definitely one of my top. It lands number 3 on my top 10 of cartoons of the 1980s. Number 2 is a series that came out during the Disney afternoon. It's called DuckTales, 1987 through 1990. There's 100 episodes exactly for DuckTales that came out. They did produce a movie as well in the theaters that came out in the 90s. It's Scrooge McDuck. It's a spinoff of Donald Duck. It's his uncle and his nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. There's great Launchpad McCrack. There's other characters, the Three Beagles, Magica, who was like a villain the villains in the show were awesome. And the intro theme was incredible. Capcom did a great job in making an NES port for the NES, a game based on the show. They're actually remaking that game, which I'm really excited about. The Disney afternoon itself had some incredible and awesome shows. Some honorable mentions I want to shout out for great shows as well that were on Disney afternoon that didn't make my top 10, but are really great shows nonetheless, would be like Chip and Dale's, Rescue Rangers. You also had Darkwing Duck, and you had Tailspin, and the Gummy Bears, and all those other great shows. Fantastic for sure. The number 1 show on my list is a show that came out in 1987 based on a comic book. A very successful line of toys by Playmates. Can you guys guess it? If you haven't done so already, it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There's 4 main turtles. You got Leonardo, Donatello, Michelangelo, Raphael, all based on really popular Italian artists back in the day, right? But these were turtles. They got into slime in the sewers. They were trained by Splinter. And you had the Foot Clan, you had Shredder. There were some great movies. The first one, like the movie came out, I think, in the late 80s, awesome, by Jim Henson. Live action movie. There was Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze came out in the early 90s with Vanilla Ice, and they had a third one as well. Turtles is very popular even today. I think Nickelodeon actually purchased the rights to Turtles, if I remember correctly, and they have a new series out. They're still producing, Playmates is still producing toys for the Turtles. But you had April O'Neil, Bebop, Rocksteady, some great ones. I bought the box set not too long ago. I've been watching every episode in sequential order, and it really goes in the backstory about how like Bebop, Rocksteady became like mutated, and how they, how the Turtles kind of developed the story. Very fascinating. The graphic novel, the comic books were a lot more, I don't know, adult friendly, I should say, but still, nonetheless, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or also in Europe for a while, it was called Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, because I guess in like UK they thought ninja was too violent, whatever. But awesome series. So that is my top 10 list of top 10 cartoon shows of the 1980s. I'd really curious to hear what you guys' top 10 cartoon shows are. Please put a video response below if you guys want to do that. That'd be awesome. At the very least, put a video comment response, or type in the comment section what your top 10 80s cartoon shows are. What are some that maybe I missed that you say, hey, John, you know what, you missed this. This is the great show. I'm really curious. Which ones do you guys agree with me on? Which ones did I mention that you maybe didn't like? We all have our different lists, and that's a beautiful thing about these shows, is every one of us are different as far as our opinions go. So guys, thanks for leaving a comment. I really appreciate you guys subscribing. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Take care.